Good morning. Um, we are going to wait just a minute or so to give folks a chance to hop on. I am going to try to do my best to keep an eye on our Facebook event in case anybody is trying to ask questions in there, as well as monitoring the chat on here. Um, I don't think we're expecting a whole lot of people this morning. And I know there are several people who can't get on right now, but they're going to watch the video later. And that is the the bonus for us doing the videos this way versus our live meetings in person. Is it's much easier for people to get on just as soon as we're done and watch the recording. So to get started, in case there's anybody watching who doesn't know who I am, I'll introduce myself pretty quickly. My name is Jessica Hembry. I am a homeschool mom in East Metro, Georgia. I'm actually in Covington. That is probably about the area where most of our viewers are going to be from. But the things we're talking about apply to any homeschoolers in Georgia. I have been homeschooling for 8 or 9 years now. I have 3 kids, one of whom graduated high school this last spring. And I also have a son who is currently a homeschooled high schooler and an elementary son. And so I have homeschooled all ages. It's been an interesting journey, but since I graduated my first this spring, I feel pretty confident these days in being able to help other homeschoolers. Um, I am the lead admin for Newton County Homeschool Co-op, which is a support organization for homeschoolers, not only in Newton County, but in about a dozen surrounding counties. We like to provide encouragement to homeschoolers, answering questions that they might have, giving them guidance when they need it. We also have enrichment opportunities like field trips and clubs and classes and play groups and all of that kind of thing. And we also like to make sure that homeschoolers are educated on the options that they have available to them, as well as um, the rules for homeschooling in the state of Georgia. Uh, I am an HSLDA ambassador volunteer. I am also involved in a number of other homeschool support groups. And so I pretty much tell homeschoolers that if you have a question out there and I can't answer it for you, I know the people who can get me the answer. So go ahead and email, message, text, however you can reach me. Feel free to ask your questions, and we'll help you as well as we can. All right. Um, so that being said, today's homeschool meeting is concerning records, how to keep records as a homeschooling family, specifically the requirements. What do you really need to do as a homeschooler in Georgia? We are also going to talk about testing, and then we'll end the chat with talking about transcripts. So this would be record keeping on a high school level. All right. Um, so, to begin with, the requirements for homeschooling in the state of Georgia are pretty simple. All right. Um, the first piece of record keeping that you would end up with as a homeschooler in Georgia would be your declaration of intent. This is a really simple online form. You fill it out when you decide to start homeschooling. Within the first 30 days, you're supposed to fill it out. You also, once you are homeschooling, need to fill a new one out every year. And I believe the deadline is September 1st, although don't hold me to that. I'll fact check that for you guys. I'm pretty sure it's sometime in September. It takes about 3 minutes to fill out. Once you have it filled out, I strongly recommend that you save a copy to your computer, your phone, whatever, um, as well as print a copy. I actually print 2 copies because I put one in my records for the year. I also put one in my wallet. And the reason I do this is because if I am out shopping and I notice that some place offers a discount to educators, you can show your declaration of intent in order to get a teacher's discount. This also comes in really handy if you go to museums or places like the aquarium. You can show that declaration of intent and get an educator's discount. So I always just fold it up, put a copy in my wallet. Comes in handy sometimes. All right. Um, Beyond that declaration of intent, there are a couple of other records that you're going to want to make sure that you tuck away each year. We don't submit anything to anyone other than the declaration of intent. Okay. All of the other records that you're going to fill out each year are just for you to have on hand in case your homeschooling is called into question. Um, does not happen very often, but it's important for you to still have that documentation. All right. Um, the first of those is probably going to be attendance in some way, shape, or form. Um, my kids are involved in local classes as part of their homeschooling. And so I pretty much can tell you which days they work on homeschool stuff. And so I don't keep a day to day attendance. Some people do. You could actually keep an agenda and keep track of the time that you are homeschooling or specific days that you are homeschooling, what you did on those days. I have done that in the past, but after 9 years, it just works easier for me to do it the short way. Um, it's just simply write down when you are schooling. I have seen lots of forums online where it's just a page of paper. I didn't print an example, I should have. It's just a page of paper with 180 squares on it. And when you complete 4.5 hours of schooling, you fill in a square. It doesn't have to be anything crazy or complicated, just a record of attendance. Okay. Um, the uh, the second record that you are probably going to have, and this is the one that everybody seems to have questions with. Attendance is pretty straightforward. If you take a test, if it's a testing year, and we'll get to this in a second, um, keeping a copy of your test, that's pretty straightforward. The part of record keeping that people ask the most questions about tends to be the annual summary. All right. The requirements to homeschool in the state of Georgia say that every year you're supposed to complete an annual summary on your homeschooling. This is actually a really simple thing. Okay. Your annual summary is just what you did. It's literally just what you did. Um, what curriculum did you use for English? What did you use for math? What did you use for science? What did you use for social studies? Did you study any other classes? Did you take field trips? It's just write down on a piece of paper what you did that year. If you take grades, if you're in a class that gives grades, or if you use a curriculum that is graded, write down what your student's grade was for that class for that year. If they were involved in any kinds of sports, clubs, activities, groups like 4-H or Scouts. Include that in your annual summary. That's it. um, there's not a whole lot of information on the annual summary. They just tell us we're supposed to do it. And so I think that's why people tend to get confused about it. But it is really just, I've had it be as little as a paragraph before, where I just listed what my first grader used for curriculum that year. And if he got grades, I wrote them down, and that's it. And you just take that and your attendance and your copy of your declaration of intent. And I typically stick it all in a manila envelope and write the year on it. And that's about it. As my kids got older, I would also keep examples of the work that they did during the year. Usually one or two pieces from the fall and one or two pieces from the spring for each class, so that you can see kind of a growth and a progression. That's more important when they get into middle school and high school levels than it is for elementary. But it's also nice to just be able to see that growth in your student through the year. So, keeping some of those worksheets or workbooks or writing assignments or coloring pages or whatever it is. And like I said, just tuck them into the same manila envelope or file folder or however it is you choose to do it. I'm old school. I like paper. And so I print all mine or write it all out and stick it in a manila envelope, and it goes into a file folder in my closet. Okay. You could obviously have it all digitally saved on a computer. The important thing is just that if for some reason your homeschooling was called into question, let's say you have a nosy neighbor who is irritated that your children are home all day and making noise, playing in the yard, and they decide to report you. You can pull out these records and you can prove to the powers involved that you are homeschooling. And most importantly, that you're meeting those legal requirements for homeschooling in the state of Georgia. Okay. So that's why those records are important. But it's so simple, guys. Compared to some of the other states where I have friends that homeschool, um, Georgia is so easy. So just do your records, okay? And there are people out there who will help you with it if you need help. But it is really just that simple, okay? Um, but if you guys have questions about record keeping, about the DOI or attendance or that annual summary, feel free to reach out to myself at NCHC, and we'll get you help with that. Okay. Our second part, and it was actually the third part on our title for today, but I want to cover testing before I cover transcripts. Just because transcripts is very specific to high schoolers. And so if anybody is tuned in that doesn't have a high schooler, I want to cover testing for you first so that you can then go do whatever you need to do. And those that need to stick around for transcripts can do so. Okay. So, one of the other requirements for homeschooling in the state of Georgia is that we have to complete a nationally standardized test every 3 years, starting in third grade. Now, that wording can be really confusing. What happens if you were in public school in fourth grade and then you decide to start homeschooling? Is it the third year from there, or is it sixth grade? That's unclear. All right. What I will tell people is that if you are in doubt, test. There are actually a number of homeschoolers that test every year, simply as a way to measure your students' progress. Again, we don't actually have to like send in our tests to the state or anything like that. You do have to have them graded by whatever organization you purchase them from. But once they send those results to you, they just go in that file folder. Okay. As far as testing goes, the important thing to remember is every 3 years or third, sixth, ninth, 12th. Okay. SID, Department of Education, does not do anything. The only time they are going to contact you is if like Child Protective Services is questioning whether you're homeschooling or not. The only thing that the education department wants from you is your declaration of intent to homeschool. That's it. They don't look at your attendance. They don't check to see what curriculum you're using. They don't want to see test scores. None of it. All right. But like I said, it's all stuff that we still need to do because it's the law here in Georgia if you're going to homeschool. And we want to make sure we're obeying those laws so that we can maintain this wonderful homeschool freedom that we have. But yeah, so they're not going to see your test scores or anything like that. Okay. The tests, there are several different options that you can pick from. The important thing is that it must be nationally standardized. Okay, so that means it gets graded by an organization and they put the score into this great big pool of all of the other students who have taken the test. Okay. the um I'm sorry, I just had a moment. The Georgia Home Education Association is an amazing resource. It's our state support group. On their website, they have got a list of the standardized tests that are recommended for homeschoolers. Um, I'm going to run through the title of those, but I'm only going to talk about two of them. Okay, and I'll explain that in a second. Um, there's the Basic Achievement Skills Inventory, the Brigance Diagnostic Inventories, the California Achievement Test, the Iowa Test of Basic Skills, the Personalized Assessment Summary System, the Stanford Achievement Test, the Woodcock-Johnson Tests of Achievement, and those are the ones that are listed on GHEA's site. Okay. The three most commonly used ones are the PASS. That was the Personalized Assessment Summary System, the Iowa Test of Basic Skills, and the California Achievement Test. Some of these tests are timed, and some of them are not. Some of them cover English skills and math skills only. Some of them cover English, math, science, and social studies. It is absolutely up to you to choose whichever one works best for your student. If your student has issues with testing and just needs their own speed, their own time, pick one of the untimed options. All right. In addition, there are some tests that require the person administering the test to have a college degree. As of a year ago, that was the case. I think they are actually trying to get away from that, but I haven't confirmed yet. I know the Iowa is the big one where you are supposed to have a bachelor's degree in order to administer it. Now, if you are really interested in having your student take the Iowa, there are organizations that provide testing. You can sign up and pay them and take your student to a location to do their testing. Excuse me. I can't give like a great big list as far as statewide on where to go for testing, but that's definitely something that you can search online. Locally, I can tell you that there are, I believe, 2 or 3 organizations in Newton County and 2 in Henry County that I am personally aware of that provide testing to homeschool students. All right. In addition to that, the majority of the tests can just be purchased online. Once you decide what test it is you're going to use, you can go to the to a supplier that provides those tests. Um, a couple of the suppliers that I'm familiar with include Bob Jones University Press provides, I think, two or three standardized testing options. Um, there are several educational resource companies, places where you would also purchase curriculum, where you can purchase tests. I personally, like I said at the beginning, I have three kids of my own. And in the last several years, we have used the California Achievement Test. And I personally purchase through Academic Excellence. Um, it's a very affordable test. I think it's like 25 or $30 or something like that. So testing does not have to be crazy expensive. Okay. That's why a lot of homeschooling families choose to do the testing every year to sort of keep up with their students' progress. All right. Um, I won't give you specifics on the cat unless you're really interested. um, like I said, the California Achievement Test is the one that I've been using on my kids the last several years. Because of the ages of my kids, we test, I think, every other year. At least one of them is testing. Um, I also work for an educational program that does classes in Newton County, and that program provides testing to our students. And so I've also been involved in testing other people's kids. Um, Robin, that's an excellent question. So Robin asked, what if we skip testing a year? Or what if we don't necessarily follow with grade levels? So that's the fun thing with homeschooling is just because your kid is a certain age doesn't mean they're a certain grade, right? Um, like I mentioned to Sid earlier, um, the Department of Education is not like out there with binoculars keeping an eye on us. Okay. If you accidentally forgot to test last year, just test this year. Okay. It's not a like they're gonna come track you down and throw you in jail kind of offense. Um, if you're really concerned about it, I tell people just go ahead and test, just to be safe. Um, but honestly, if you accidentally forgot that you were supposed to test last year, um, just go ahead and make it up as soon as you realize the mistake, and it's not that big of a deal. Okay. Um, I have had I have had people come to me um, who they start homeschooling and they know they have to file their declaration of intent every year, and they're great with that, but they don't pay attention to the other requirements for homeschooling. And so they homeschool 4 or 5 years and then go, wait a minute, what are you doing talking about testing? What's testing? What are you? I don't know what you're talking about. Um, and so then we gently remind them what the requirements for homeschooling legally in the state of Georgia are, and urge them to test their student as soon as possible. But yes, Robin, you're safe. Okay. um, if you guys have questions about specific tests, or if you want my own opinion on the CAT, the California Achievement Test, I am more than happy to chat with you guys. privately. In the information on this video, as soon as I get off, I'll be providing Newton County Homeschool Co-op's email address. I am the one that will end up talking to you if you email that. Um, and like I said earlier, I'll if I can't personally answer your question, I know how to find people who can. All right, we'll get you taken care of. So we've talked about the record keeping, we've talked about testing, and all of that applies to any homeschooler in the state of Georgia. All right. But inevitably, when we start talking about testing and we start talking about record keeping, um, those of us with older students want to know about transcripts. Okay. So if you are logged on and you have a younger student and transcripts really are not important to you right now, I will go ahead and say thank you for joining us, and tune in next month when we will be talking about. Oh, well, no, you won't want to tune in next month, because next month we're going to talk about middle school and high school homeschooling, and the specific things that come up with those. Um, but anyhow, you are welcome to reach out to NCHC. I'll also post the links to Georgia Home Education Association, as well as HSLDA. Both of their websites are a wealth of information for homeschoolers, and so I will make sure to have that information in the info section of this video as soon as we're done with the live. All right. Sorry, I was trying to make sure I'm not missing questions on our chat. So transcripts. This is absolutely optional. That's the first thing I want to throw out there, is just because you have an older homeschooling student does not mean you have to have transcript. Okay. Transcripts are simply a more detailed way of record keeping your students' classes or their curriculum. Okay. Some people like to start keeping transcript style records in middle school, especially if your student is working with advanced curriculum or taking classes that might be considered high school level. So I have worked with students personally as young as 6th grade to start keeping records that are transcript style. Okay. Typically, if you're interested in transcripts, you're going to start that in 8th or 9th grade. Again, it kind of depends on the curriculum you're using and the courses that your student is taking, as far as whether you go to a transcript style record versus just having the annual summary. Okay. So I know that's not a concrete answer, Robin, but it's one of those things, because it's not actually required. It's just kind of up to you and where your student is at, and what kind of record keeper you are as well. All right. So regardless of grade, Whether your sixth grader is taking advanced classes or whether you've got a student who is now ninth grade and taking high school classes. Um, Transcripts are an easy way to keep track of very specific information for older students. Okay. Um, I'm trying to pull examples. Give me a second. So, when we are talking about transcripts, the majority of the time, they're going to look something like this. All right. The transcript pretty much has the same kind of information, regardless of which way you choose to set it up. Okay. All transcripts are going to include the student's name, their birth date, their address, and their date of graduation. In addition, they are going to probably also have you put either a school name. So my kids, our home school is called Eagle Academy. It is actually also the name of the program that we teach from. So we have students that have transcripts and diplomas that say Eagle Academy, even though they're not my own birthed children, which is kind of exciting. That's kind of awesome. So it'll ask for school name. If you don't have a school name, it's going to ask for parent's name. Okay. So if you don't have a fancy name for your homeschool, just put your name on there. It's fine. It's the same thing. And then your contact information. So your address, your phone number, your email address. And this is so that anybody viewing this transcript that might have questions is able to contact you and clarify those questions. Okay. And then all transcripts are supposed to be signed. And as homeschoolers, that would be the parent's job, whichever parent or guardian is signing the declaration of intent to homeschool for the year would be the parent that signs the transcript. Okay. As far as organizing your transcript, there are a couple of different ways to do it. You can organize it by grade. So I'll use my son as an example. He is 10th grade this year. So I would have a section on his transcript that says 9th grade and lists all of the subjects or classes that he took that year. And then he would have a separate section for this year, all of the subjects, curriculum, classes for this year. You can also do it by actual year, regardless of what grade they're in. If you don't label them as being in a certain grade, that's fine. Put 22 to 23 for last year, for this year. Oh my goodness. So last year, his 9th grade year would be labeled 21 to 22. And then this school year would be 22 to 23. Next school year would be 23 to 24. Hopefully that makes sense. You can also just group your transcript by subject. So I think I have an example that does that. So they've taken all of the English classes and put those into a section. Doesn't matter when the class was taken, they just put it into this section. Same thing with science and math. Okay. So it's completely up to you how you organize that information, whether it's by grade, by school year, or by subject. Okay. Um, for each one of those sections, you're going to want to include the name of the class. So, for instance, my son is taking British literature this year. I would write British literature on the line. He's taking Algebra 1. I would write Algebra 1 on the line. And then you are going to put grades. All right. Some transcripts include semester grades. So, whatever grade he had in the fall, and then whatever grade he has in the spring when he finishes the class. Not all homeschoolers do their work that way. So, if you don't Sid, yes. I am absolutely available to email all of these information packets. I have so many that I can make available to you guys. Just shoot NCHC an email, let them know you watched the video and that you need the transcript files. And I will get those emailed to you guys, okay? So, if you don't break your class into semesters, you can do halfway through the curriculum, and then when you get to the end of the curriculum, or you can just assign one final grade for your student. That's absolutely fine. Okay. Just because it says first semester and second semester on there doesn't mean remember, this is an optional way of keeping record. It's not like it's required. Okay. That's the awesome thing with homeschooling. And then the other thing that high school transcripts have on them is credits. All right. When students are in public school, they are given a credit for completing an entire year of a class. All right. Colleges and universities use credits. Typically, college courses are actually, I think, 3 credits per year. Don't hold me to that, though. It's been a while since I was in college. But if you that's important to know if you have a student that chooses dual enrollment or decides to take like online college courses, you can give them a greater credit hour for that level of class because it's a more challenging course. Okay. That's the biggest thing. When we typically look at assigning credit hours, it's dependent on how much time is being spent on the class. How much it's signifying how much work you did. Okay. And so there are a lot of I was going to see if I had a piece of paper somewhere that broke down credits. I know that I have it. I don't think I printed it. So Sid, I'll answer that question in just a second, okay? Because I have a feeling I'll get distracted and go on a tangent when I get into that. But I will circle back to that, I promise. Um, so the files that I'm going to email you guys, or those of you that might come back to this later, there are resources out there where you can find out how to assign credit hours. Um, Same thing with assigning grades, and a grade system, because typically with a transcript, we're also able to calculate a GPA, grade point average. And this is more than just saying your kid got a 97% in math. Okay. This is that um 0 to 4.0 grading scale. So if I say I'm a 4.0 student, that means I'm a straight A student. Um, so I know for a fact one of the resources that I can email you guys has a grading scale included in it, in case you're interested in that. But the important things to see on the transcript are the name of the class, the grade, and how much credit you're assigning to the class. If it's just a semester class, it's typically half a credit. If it's a full year class, it's typically a 1 credit. When we look at credits, and we compare it to the public school system, most colleges and universities are going to be looking to see that you took a specific number of specific classes. All right. So they are going to want to see 4 credits of English, 3 or 4 credits of math, 3 credits of social studies, 3 to 4 credits of science. They're going to want to see health and PE on there somewhere, and they're going to want to see fine arts and foreign language. As far as foreign language goes, most colleges and universities want to see at least 2 years of the same language. So keep that in mind. If your student does not plan on going to a college or university, they can take whatever they want as long as they're meeting the requirements of math, science, social studies, and English for each year that they're homeschooling, because that's the state requirements. The state says every single year that you're homeschooling, math, science, English, social studies. Okay. But you can take all kinds of other things in addition to that. Some colleges, universities, even tech programs are going to want to see specific classes. So I always tell high school students and their families, if you plan on going to college and you plan on going into a certain field, look at the colleges that you're interested in and find out what their requirements are. Because if you are going to a school that wants you to have Algebra 2, make sure you get Algebra 2. If your school just says we need to see 4 years of math, then it doesn't matter what math it is as long as it's math. Okay? So piece of advice there. If you are looking at a specific school or a specific program, see what kind of classes you should be taking in high school in order to basically make it easier for you to get into the program. Okay. Robin, ASL is a foreign language. The overwhelming majority of colleges and universities count it as being a foreign language. All right. So absolutely use it. I'm trying to think if there's other really important things. Like I said, I have at least 3 or 4 different informational packets that I can email you guys concerning transcripts, examples on how to fill those out. I also have files, the educational program that I work for, we base our classes on the standards that the public school system uses in the state of Georgia. And so I actually have resources that list what public school students in Georgia can use on their transcript as far as math options or science options, English options. Okay. You do not just have to do pre algebra 1, algebra 2, geometry. Okay. Just because those are the typical ones that are offered for public schoolers doesn't mean as homeschoolers we have to follow the same thing. Okay. And that goes for Englishes, sciences, everything. But I do have resources that list possible options that would meet the criteria for being counted in the way that a public school student would have theirs counted, if you guys are interested in that information as well. That is pretty much the important notes for transcripts, unless you guys have additional questions. I want to make sure, I don't want to keep you guys too long. We haven't quite hit an hour yet, but before we wrap up, I want to circle back to the comment that Sid made earlier. The concern with, let me find it, having the opportunity to experience a classroom with other children their age. We actually hear this a lot from homeschoolers. Obviously, we're homeschooling for a reason. Public school or private school did not work for our student or did not work for our family. And so we chose to homeschool. But as homeschoolers, there admittedly are things that our students don't naturally have access to. Things like socialization, things like organized classroom setting. Okay. There are a multitude of ways, especially here in Newton County and the surrounding areas. There are so many organizations that offer classes and clubs to homeschooling students. I can rattle off a few of them. It by no means is going to be a complete list. But there's His Master's Voice, Home of Fine Arts, Summit Academy, Compass Community, Paragon, Eagle Academy. Shameless plug for my own organization right there. There are art classes, there are dance classes, there are sports organizations, there are play groups, there are gaming groups. There are so many options for having our kids interact with other kids their age, as well as kids that are not their age. That's one of the perks with homeschooling, is when we're socializing, it doesn't just have to be their age. As far as the structured, organized classroom setting, definitely check out one of the local class options. There are some that are fine arts. There are some that are tech. There are some that are just fun classes. Um, but it will give you an opportunity to take your student somewhere, have them be responsible under someone other than mom or dad, um, and give them that alternative learning environment. So that there's definitely ways for you to make sure that your student has that experience. Lots of different price points as well. So don't think that it's going to cost you a small fortune. It can, absolutely, but it doesn't have to. All right. And if you're interested in specific kinds of classes, or if you want contact information for some of those organizations, I have all of that on file as well. Especially if you want to let me know what area you're in, that helps me know which organizations to suggest to you. Because those of you that are watching this video in Winder or Loganville, you probably don't want to drive all the way to Eagle Academy. As much as I would love to see you, we are on the south side of Newton County, right on the edge of Newton County and Henry County, and that would be a long drive. Okay. So are public schools required to allow homeschool students to participate in certain extracurricular classes and sports? The answer to this is yes. There is legislation in place that requires public schools to allow your homeschool student to participate in things like sports and bands and chorus. However, not all public schools are eager to allow homeschoolers to participate, and they will make you jump through hoops. They will ask for certain requirements to be met. And for a lot of families, it's just not worth it. That being said, there are several private schools in our area that are very open to homeschooler participation. And I will gladly recommend you to check them out. I believe the one is Peach Tree Academy, Peach State Academy, Peach something Academy. I will verify that name and get you guys contact information. The other one that I know of personally is a Christian Academy in McDonough. I want to say NCC, New Creation Christian Academy or Christian School or something like that. I personally know homeschooling families that have been involved in both of those organizations and say wonderful things about them. So while legally you have the right to contact the local public school, be prepared. And I will throw out there, check your local private schools as well, because a lot of times they're more eager to work with us than the public school system. Okay. So that's very sweet of you to say. The comment said, you are awesome. Please teach a class on TikTok and get paid for it. People on TikTok need to know you. So many people want to homeschool but don't know how. I am not tech savvy. Y'all are really lucky to have me here on YouTube Live and on Facebook. I have been mentoring homeschooling families since I started. When I started homeschooling, my daughter, my oldest, was dealing with a bully in the public school system that actually followed her to the next school year. And the public school basically said, we can't do much about that. And I have a bachelor's in education. And I remember sitting down and saying, if I am qualified to teach other people's kids, why can't I teach my own? And so I started researching homeschooling. I spent hours and hours and hours looking for curriculum, looking for class options, making sure I was doing things right. Um, and I wanted help. I wanted community. I wanted other homeschoolers to be around us. And I couldn't find anything closer than Athens and Atlanta and Macon. And I said, this is stupid. I'll make my own group. And so in the fall of 2015, with I think 4 other families at that time, I created Newton County Homeschool Co-op. And now, 7 years later or whatever it is, we are almost 1,200 families in like 13 or 14 counties. And a large part of what I do is support, making sure when you guys have questions, I find you answers. That's a big reason why I am a part of HSLDA. And I am involved in a lot of community stuff. So you guys will definitely not be seeing the end of me anytime soon. um, let's see. So Robin, even with the legal ability to participate, you do still have to pay fees for sports. Whether you go to the public schools or whether you go to the private schools, there's still going to be fees. And some of them, especially with sports like football, it gets pricey. But you're going to hit that whether it's public or whether it's private. All right. Yes. So, Robin, as far as the requirement for declaration of intent to homeschool, we didn't go through all of the requirements on homeschooling in Georgia today. We do have another video on that. It's a topic we've already covered. When you go to file your declaration of intent, it's important to know that the law in Georgia says the parent or guardian signing the declaration of intent must have a high school diploma or equivalent. Okay. So you must have a GED or a diploma. We have had some families that want to homeschool, but they can't meet this requirement. And for those families, we have a couple of recommendations. Typically, our first recommendation is that you use an alternative school. So this would be something like Georgia Cyber or Georgia Connections Academy, K-12. These are online schools that your student would do at home, but they're still public schools. So when you enroll in a program like Georgia Connections Academy, your student is still considered to be a public school student. And therefore, you wouldn't need to file a declaration of intent. All right. Now, obviously, that might not be an option. Maybe your student doesn't do good with online schooling, or maybe it's just you want it away from the rules and regulations with public school. Um, there are programs available to adults to earn a high school diploma or to get your GED. And we can put you in touch with those kinds of programs to help you get that going, um, in order to have a long-term solution. Um, there are quite a few programs out there to where you can, sometimes it's as simple as taking a test, and if you pass the test, you get a diploma. All right. So there is that option. So don't let that requirement prevent you from homeschooling, because there are other ways to still homeschool, um, if you don't meet that requirement. So anybody who might watch this video and you're thinking you want to homeschool, but you don't have a diploma or a GED, please contact NCHC and we will get you the resources to try to help you. Okay. Um, but yes, that is a requirement. Whoever is filling out the declaration of intent to homeschool must have high school diploma or GED or equivalent. All right. Um, I hope I caught all of your questions and your comments. Um, Again, as soon as we end this video, I'm going to put some resources for HSLDA and GHEA and the NCHC, so that you can reach out to us, those of you that are currently watching and those of you that might come back and watch this later. Okay? Um, any questions before I say goodbye to you guys? You guys are gonna give me a big head. Y'all keep calling me awesome and stuff. I am just a mom trying to help other families homeschool. That's really all this is. All right. But thank you both. Um, so again, I'll make sure I post that contact info. And next month, our meeting, I don't think I gave a date earlier. It will be March 10th at 10 a.m. Again, we'll have the Facebook event ahead of time, but then we'll be live here on the NCHC channel, and we'll be talking about specifically homeschooling middle school and high school level students. All right. So I might see you ladies then. And have a great weekend, guys.